Happy Purim, everyone. Continuing in Daf Yomi. This is a Daf of Purim, of 14th, although in Jerusalem, Purim is actually on the 15th. So we just started our Purim while the rest of the world is finishing their regular Purim. But in any case, right now it's Purim for everyone, in America and in Israel. So, hence the sombrero. So here we are. Daf, it's in Menachot, Daf 51b. Last few words of 51a is Hadar Amar Danin. Rabbi Shimon said we should derive this halacha, top of 51b now. It's 8:51 right now, and we're in Daf 51. That's pretty cool. Mincha haba yisrael with regard to the griddle cake offering of the high priest, which is a meal offering that comes in the amount of a tenth of an ephah of flour, from the meal offering that accompanies the sacrifice of sheep, which is also a meal offering that comes in the amount of a tenth of an ephah of flour, and not from a meal offering that is brought in the amount of the 2 or 3/10 of an ephah of flour. That's it for the Talmud, and now we start the new Mishnah. Zog the Heilige Mishnah, lo iminu koyin achal tachtov, mishel mihoisu chevo, b'shimon omer, mishel tzibur, b'yudo omer, mishel yoshin, u'shlem ahoisu chevo. Mishnah says, if they did not appoint another high priest in his stead, from whose property was the griddle cake offering brought and sacrificed? Rabbi Shimon says, is brought and sacrificed from the property of the community. Rabbi Yehuda says it is brought and sacrificed from the property of the heirs of the high priest, and for the duration of the period until the new high priest was appointed. The griddle cake offering was sacrificed as a complete tenth of an ephah of fine flour. All right, now we go. That's the Mishnah. That's the whole Mishnah, one line. And now for the Gemara. Zok the Gemara zogt. Tonu Rabbanon koin gadol shemeis v'lo yiminu koin achal tachtov minayin shetehei. In the Chasei Chev Mishel Yoshin Tamud Loma V'Kohen Mashiach Tachtov Yonov Yaseh Yisov. The sages taught a braita in a case where the high priest died, and they did not appoint another high priest in his stead. From where is it derived? His griddle cake meal offering should be sacrificed from the property of the heirs of the high priest. The verse states, in reference to the griddle cake offering and the anointed priest that shall be in his stead, from among his sons shall offer it, Leviticus 6:15. Yochol yakri ben chatzoin, tamid lomar oisa, kula v'lo chetzio. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, one might have thought that the heirs should sacrifice it in halves, as the high priest does. Therefore, the verse states it, teaching that they should sacrifice all of the tenth of an ephah, and not half of it. This is David, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Chal Oilam Mishel Oilam, Klil Takdir Shetehei Kula Behaktoro. Rabbi Shimon says, the continuation of the verse, it is a statute forever, Olam to the Lord, teaches that in the case of a high priest who has died and has not yet been replaced, the offering is brought from the property of the world, meaning the community. The end of the verse, it shall be wholly made to smoke to the Lord, teaches that although it is brought by the community and not by a priest, the entire tenth of an ephah should be sacrificed and not eaten. Okay, one moment. Vaitel, B'hai Chon Mashiach. So the Gemara has to did the verse, and the anointed priest that shall be in his stead from among his sons shall offer it, come to teach us halacha that you would derive from me. Tamim ba'ilei l'tagin zeh komen haon uvana sheyakrivu l'Hashem yom ha'mashavos yechol Yehu ahachon uvana mekrivu korban echad tamud lomar asher yakrivu l'Hashem. That verse is needed for that which is taught in a braita. This is the offering of Aaron and his sons, which they shall offer to the Lord in the day when he is anointed. Leviticus 6:13. One might have thought that since the verse speaks of the offering in the singular, it means that Aaron and his sons should sacrifice one offering. Therefore the verse states, which they shall offer to the Lord. The plural teaching that Aaron sacrificed an offering by himself as a high priest, and his sons sacrifice offerings by themselves as ordinary priests. When the verse refers to his sons, these are the ordinary priests. Each priest must bring a griddle cake offering as an offering of initiation when he begins his service. Ata omer kohanim hedyotos, oenu el kohanim gedolim. Keshu oimer, Yakohen Mashiach tachta mi bonav harei kohen gadol amo. Ama ani mikayim bonav elu kohanim hedyotos. Do you say that this is referring to the offering of initiation of ordinary priests, or is it referring only to the griddle cake offering of the high priests? When the verse states in the continuation of that passage, and the anointed priest that shall be in his stead from among his sons shall offer it, it is a statute forever to the Lord. It shall be holy, made small to the Lord. Leviticus 6:15. The griddle cake offering of the high priest is thereby mentioned. How do I realize the meaning of the term his sons? In Leviticus 6:13, these are the ordinary priests, and the verse is referring to their offering of initiation. Consequently, the verse 15 is referring to the basic obligation of the high priest to bring griddle cake offering, rather than referring to a case of a high priest who died. The Gemara answers, the verse teaches both the basic obligation of the high priest to bring the griddle cake offering daily, and the fact that when he dies, his heirs must bring the offering until the new high priest is appointed. If it were so, that the verse is teaching only that the heirs of a high priest who died must bring the griddle cake offering until a new high priest is appointed, let the verse merely write, the anointed high priest that shall be in his stead, his sons shall offer. What does it need to say from among his sons? Learn from the fact that the verse uses this term, that two halachos are derived from the verse. V'Rabbi Shimon hayoisa ma'avid le mi boyle lekohen gadol shemesu minu. The Gemara asks, and what is the Rabbi Shimon drives the halacha that it should entirely be sacrificed in the phrase, it shall be wholly made to smoke? Do that with the word it, from which Rabbi Yehuda derives his halacha. The Gemara answers, he requires it to teach that in the case of a high priest who died after bringing the first half of this griddle cake offering, and then they appointed another high priest in his stead, the replacement high priest should neither bring half of a tenth of an ephah of flour from his house, nor sacrifice the remaining half of the tenth of an ephah of the first high priest, being his predecessor. The Gemara asks them to derive this halacha from the expression and half of it, Leviticus 6:13, as discussed in 50b. The word and, which is added by the letter vav at the beginning of the word, is expanded to mean that the replacement high priest must bring a complete tenth of an ephah of fine flour. The Gemara answers, he did not derive the halacha from there because he does not expound the extra letter vav in that word, as he holds that its addition is not significant. Rabbi Yehuda haychok oilam. The Gemara asks, and what does Rabbi Yehuda holds that if the high priest dies and if the new one has not yet been appointed, the griddle cake offering is brought by the previous high priest's heirs? Do with that phrase, it is a statute referring to the Lord, from which Rabbi Shimon derives that it is brought from the communal resources. The Gemara answer teaches that the statute requiring the high priest to sacrifice the griddle cake offering is to apply forever. Klil, taktir lamna limi boyle lechinetanya. The The Gemara asks, according to Yehuda, why do I need the phrase, it shall be holy, made to smoke? The Gemara answers, he requires it for which is taught in a Braita. I have derived only that the griddle cake meal offering of the high priest mentioned above is included in the mandate. It shall be made holy to smoke, Leviticus 6:15, and that the voluntary meal offering of the ordinary priest mentioned below is included in the prohibition, it shall not be eaten, Leviticus 6:16. Minayin litain es homo shozeh es homo shozeh tamunoma klil ligzera shove nevakan klil nevalahalan klil. From where is it derived that one is mandated to apply what is said about that verse to this one, and what is said about this verse to that one? The verse states, with regard to the griddle cake offering holy, and the verse uses the word holy with regard to the voluntary meal offering of a priest in order to teach the verbal analogy. It is stated here with regard to the griddle cake meal offering of the high priest holy, Leviticus 6:15. And it is stated there with regard to the voluntary meal offering of the ordinary priest, holy, Leviticus 6:16. Makan kulil tektar aflalan mikulil tektar malalan iten lo itaser alachiloso yafkan iten lo itaser alachiloso. Just as here, with regard to the griddle cake meal offering, is included in the mandate, it shall be holy made to smoke. So too there the voluntary meal offering of the ordinary priest is included in the mandate. It shall be holy made to smoke, and just as there with regard to the voluntary meal offering of the ordinary priest, the verse comes to place a prohibition on its consumption, so too here with regard to the griddle cake meal offering of the high priest, the verse comes to place a prohibition on its consumption. The Sofer Shimon Mishel Tzibu Deraisel. The Gemara asks, and does Rabbi Shimon hold that in the case where the high priest died and a new one has not been even appointed, the requirement that the griddle offering must be brought, that be brought from the property of the community is by Torah law, as indicated by the fact that he derives this halacha from a verse that's not Rabbi Shimon Shiva Devarim Hitkinu Beis Din V'Shel Echad Mehen Goy Shishalach Elosei B'Dias Hayom Shalach Imon Nesachim Kreva, or in brackets Krevim Mishaloi, Yumlav Krevim Shalzibu. But didn't we learn the Mishnah in Shkalim 7:6? Rabbi Shimon said the court instituted 7 ordinances with regard to the final aspects of offerings and consecrations. And this ordinance, namely, that the cost of libations accompanying the sacrifice of a found animal is borne by the public, is one of them. These are the other ordinances in the case of a Gentile who sent his burnt offering from a country overseas, and he sent it with money for the purchase of the libations, that must accompany the libations or sacrifice at his expense. And if the Gentile did not cover the cost of the libations, it is a condition of the court that the libations are sacrificed at the public's expense, with funds taken from the temple treasury. וכן גר שמייס בניח זבחים יש לסם רב בשלוי ממלאב רב בשציבו. And similarly, in the case of a convert who died without heirs and left animals that he had designated as offerings, if he has the libations, meaning if he also set aside libations or money for that purpose, libation or sacrifice from his estate, and if he did not do so, libation or sacrifice from public funds. Utanai Bezdin, who Kohen Gadol Shemes v'lo minu Kohen Acher Tachtav Shetehem Menachaso Kreva B'Shel Tzibu. And other ordinances, it is a stipulation of the court with regard to a high priest who died and they did not yet appoint another high priest in his stead, that his griddle cake meal offering would be sacrificed from public funds. Rabbi Shimon then enumerates 3 additional ordinances. In any case, it is clear from this Mishnah that Rabbi Shimon holds that this halacha concerning the offering of a high priest who died is a rabbinic ordinance rather than Torah law. Amar Rabbi Abahu, parentheses says sheni, or shnei, and in brackets says shtei. So either one. It mean the same thing. Tekanos havu, Rabbi Abahu said in response, Rabbi Shimon holds that this halacha is by Torah law, but in fact, there were two ordinances that were enacted concerning this matter. Deraiso, miditzibur kibbud nechazo, kol midachka lishka, takinu delgabe miyoshim kibbud nechazo, dekavoshe ba okmuha adioiraiso. Initially, they acted in accordance with that which is prescribed by Torah law. And if a high priest died and a new high priest had not yet been appointed, in his stead his griddle cake meal offering would be sacrificed from public funds. Once they saw that the funds in the chamber of the temple treasury were being depleted, the sages instituted an ordinance that the payment for the offering should be collected from the previous high priest's heirs. Once they saw that the heirs were negligent in the matter and did not bring the offering, they revoked the previous ordinance and established it in accordance with the halachas as it is by Torah law, that it be brought from public funds. The Gemara cites the continuation of the mission in Shkalim 7:7, and the court enacted an ordinance with regard to the red heifer, that one is not liable to bring an offering for misusing consecrated property to derive benefit from its ashes. The Gemara asks, why does the Braita state that this is an ordinance of the court, when in fact it is by Torah law? As it is taught in Braita, the verse states with regard to a red heifer, it is a sin offering, Numbers 19:9, which teaches that a red heifer is treated like a sin offering, in that one is liable for misusing it. The fact that it states it is a sin offering indicates that if one derives benefit from it, the animal itself is liable for misusing consecrated property. Okay, we'll stop here.